Hello, we are from Group 4. In this group work, we are analyzing reframing strategies in Indonesian and English news. Our group consists of 6 members. Here are the names of the members. And my name is Vika Milasha Jafar as the first speaker. I am going to discuss the first and the second news. In the first news, the Indonesian news is titled Pemerintah akan perluas cakupan vaksinasi COVID-19, while the English news is titled Indonesia to widen COVID-19 vaccination scope. The type of the news are hard news. For selective appropriation strategy, in Indonesian news, there are additions to elaborate information of the way the government is improving the vaccination queue systems and who gets vaccinated on the first phase of vaccination. While in English news, there are omissions to suppress information. There is no information of the way the government is improving vaccination queue systems and who gets vaccinated on vaccination first phase. For framing by labeling, in Indonesian news, the actor is labeled specifically as the government. The word government here refers to Indonesian government. While in English news, the actor is labeled generally as Indonesia. The word Indonesia refers to the country as a whole, consisting of its government and people. For temporal and spatial framing in Indonesian news, the information is split into sentences to emphasize on the aims of widening COVID-19 vaccination scope. While in English news, the information is delivered in one sentence with no emphasis on any part. However, we could not find any repositioning of participant strategies in both Indonesian and English news. Next, we are discussing about the second news. In the second news, the Indonesian news is titled Mendikbud, pembelajaran tatap muka bisa dimulai setelah vaksinasi guru. While the English news is titled Face-to-Face Learning to Resume Once Teachers Vaccinated, Minister. The type of the news are hard news. For selective appropriation strategy, in Indonesian news, there are omissions to suppress the information of health protocols must be applied even after teachers are vaccinated, and addition to accentuate information of the aim in vaccinating teachers. While in English news, there are addition to elaborate information of health protocols must be applied even after teachers are vaccinated, and omission to suppress information of the aim in vaccinating teachers. For framing by labeling in Indonesian news, the actor is labeled specifically as Mendikbud. The word Mendikbud specifically refers to the Indonesian Education and Culture Minister, while in English news, the actor is labeled generally as minister. The word minister may refer to any type of minister in Indonesia. For temporal and spatial framing, in Indonesian news, there are 3 sentences in which the actor is mentioned at the beginning of the sentence. It shows that the writer is focused on the actor. While in English news, there are 3 sentences in which the actor is mentioned at the end of the sentence. It shows that the writer is focused on the information itself. For the last strategies, repositioning of participants, in Indonesian news, the writer used the word menekankan, which can be translated as stressed. The word stressed has emphasis in it. While in the English news, the writer used the word aided, which has no emphasis in it. That's, that is it from my discussion. The third news will be delivered by my groupmate Madi.
Hello, my name is Made Sandani, and I'm going to read about News 3 and News 4. In News 3, the first title in English news is Vaccination in mutual cooperation must be free of charge. And then in Indonesian news, the title is Menkes tugaskan vaksin gotong royong gratis. The type of the news are hard news. The first one strategy is selective appropriation. Selective appropriation. In Indonesian news, omission are in Indonesian news found omission to suppress and addition conjunction. Meanwhile, in English news, found that addition to elaborate the information and omission conjunction. So it's like in Indonesian news, there's mention about mereknya in the source text, that the writer didn't elaborate what mereknya itu actually. In English news, mereknya by elaborated and information as the fact. The second one is by labeling. The actors labeled especially as members, and meanwhile in this news, the actors labeled generally as minister. And then the third one, temporal framing. It mentioned as event and dates such as Peraturan Menteri Kesehatan Nomor 10 Tahun 2021 that related to the previous sentence about the vaccination to handle COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, in this news, it also mentioned the past event and date Minister Regulation number 10 and the 2021 vaccination to handle COVID-19. And then the last one is repositioning of participants. The word uses the word said Menteri Budi in Indonesia. There is no an elaboration. Meanwhile, in English news, the writer uses the word the minister elaborate. There is an elaboration which is different from the source text. The writer can use said instead of elaborated. Next. In Newswire, the first title in English is Minister Reveals Downward Trend in COVID-19 Positive Cases Patients. In Indonesian News, the title is Menkes Kasus Positif dan Pasien COVID-19 di RS dalam tren turun. The first strategy is selective improvisation. So in news found the omission of information specification purpose, omission of categories such as pronouns, and addition of categories such as pronouns. And in English news found the addition of information specification purpose. The second one is addition of categories such as pronouns, demonstrative pronouns, this. Omission of categories such as pronouns. So for example, like in Indonesian, about addition of categories such as pronouns itu, it can be found in the sentence itu sudah turun. Meanwhile in English news, the omission occurred as the word itu didn't translate and didn't including in. It's only translated as so the number of cases dropped without translating the itu. And then the second one is framing by labeling. The actors labeled specifically as Menkes, meanwhile in this news, the actors labeled generally as the minister. And then the third one is temporal framing. It is mentioned as if only puncak liburan Natal or Christmas holiday that related to previous sentence about the reduction has occurred in number of confirmed cases and reduction in hospital care based on fundamental. Meanwhile, in English news, it is mentioned past events such as the Christmas and New Year holidays that related to this sentence, but the decline has occurred in number of confirmed cases and reduction in hospital care on fundamental. And then the last one is repositioning of participants in Indonesian news found that the writer uses words mengungkapkan which can be translated as reveals. It stated that the health minister Budi reveals the confirmed positive case. And then the writer used the word kata Budi, which it can be translated with said Budi. In English news found that the writer uses the word when that instead of reveals. And the writer uses the word minister remarked, which is it's different from said, and it lacks the justify the something then the minister just said a statement. That's all from me. And the next one will be delivered by my friend.
Hello everyone, my name is Abdika Tasli Amrullah and I'm going to explain about the news 5. It is entitled Indonesia Lucky to Have Moved for Vaccine Supply Early by Jokowi. In English version and Indonesian version, Presiden RI said RI beruntung sejak awal sudah bergerak dapatkan vaksin. The first point is selective appropriation. The selective appropriation in Indonesian news, there is omission to suppress the specific information. The Indonesian version's lead has not presented the information about the sources of the vaccines. Meanwhile, in English news, there is an addition to give more information. As an example, the English version adds the adverb of, the additional information from producing nations at the end of the lead that add information that the vaccines were not independently produced by Indonesia. And the second, in Indonesian news, there is addition to give detailed information. The Indonesian version specifically mentioned in what event Jokowi stated his speech about the fortunate of Indonesia in getting the early vaccine access. It is in the event of international conference in tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. And the second, English news also provide addition to accentuate or emphasize information. In the English version, the word early is added to emphasize the information that Indonesia gets the vaccine access prior to other Southeast Asian countries, that this early is not present in Indonesian version. The last selection appropriation is addition to elaborate the information in Indonesian version that's provide exact information that consists of how the program is expected by the president through the word presiden berharap and the target of the program kepada seluruh masyarakat penerima. It is about the vaccination program. So the vaccination program is in Indonesian version is decorated with additional information about the president's hope and the target. Meanwhile, in English version, there is omission to suppress the information about the president berharap and the target, in which the English version tends to more focus on the event rather than the person who state his expectation. The next, we move to framing by labeling. In Indonesian version, the writer addressed the actors, the president as President RI Joko Widodo, President Jokowi, and President. From this labeling, it can be inferred that the writer of Indonesian tried to label the president completely with the name and the title, as Indonesian cultural norm that it is more polite to say the name and title completely. In this way, the author also emphasized that the president is the sole actor of the news, in which it gave highlights or focus on the actors who say the information. The next, in the English version, the addresses the president mostly without his title president, only at the beginning of the lead. The news mentioned the title of the actor president of Joko Widodo, or Jokowi. For the rest of the narration, the writer only used Jokowi, the head of state, and the president. It can be assumed that the author expects the readers already have knowledge of what or who the addressed person is, according to the information in the lead. However, it is also to highlight that the news is more focused on the information rather than on the actors. And then the last is temporal and spatial framing. The Indonesian version mostly presented in one sentence with the arrangement of actors, the core information, and place and time effort. The news arrangement is focusing on the actors, then followed by the information. The information of Indonesian version is wrapped only in one scene. It emphasizes the fact that the actor who delivered the instruction to obey the health protocol and information of the methods in handling the COVID-19 is Jokowi. It is in the last sentence of the news. Meanwhile, in the English version that often omitting the information of the actors, it means that the news only focusing on the event. There are also information, the same information as mentioned in the Indonesian. It is presented in 3 paragraphs, different to Indonesian version that is only presented in 1 paragraph. It may indicate that the writer means to attract more focus to each information, or be focusing more on the information about obeying the health protocol in handling COVID, without providing the information of actors. While in the news, there is no repositioning of participants. That is all from me. The rest will be continued by my group mates. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, so moving on to the news 6. My name is Muhammad Cesar. So the English version of the news is Vice President Amin receives China's Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine shot, while the Indonesian version is Wapres Ma'ruf Amin disuntik vaksin Sinovac. So the first point in the selective appropriation is the omissions occurred in title to simplify, and the omissions to suppress information and the addition to elaborate information. While the English news, there is an omission to suppress information and addition to elaborate information. So what we have found in this news is the first, we can see in the title, the English version also adds an additional information regarding the Sinovac vaccine, which is the origin. As we can see in the title, there is China's Sinovac COVID-19 vaccine shot, while the Indonesian version simply written as Sinovac. And also, in the news, we can see that in the Indonesian version, the President segera menuju lokasi, which emphasized the urgency of the President's event of observing the vaccination program. And while in the English version, there's an additional information about the vaccination, but about the time when Indonesia started conducting the vaccine program. The writer added that there is no problem about the Indonesian vaccination program. So moving on to the second point, which is framing by labeling. Both Indonesian and English news, the actor labeled specifically as Wapres in the Indonesian, while the English news, the actor is labeled specifically as the Vice President. Moving on to the third point, which is the temporal and spatial framing. The first is in Indonesian news. I'm sorry. So it mainly focused on how the vaccine affects elderly people, while the English news also mainly focused on how the vaccine affects elderly people. And what we have found here is both in the Indonesian and English news, there's an additional information about how the Chinese and Brazilian elderly people have a particular side effects about the vaccine. So in the Chinese elderly people, it is found that they gain an additional immune system, while the Brazilian elderly people, they experience side effects such as nausea and headache. And that is all for me. The next will be presented by my mate. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Muhammad Rizkin Praha. My student number is 490, and I'm going to talk about News 7 and 8. News 7, the title is Government Applies Multi-Pronged Approach to Maintain Vaccine Supplies, while the Indonesian version is Pemerintah berupaya menjaga pasokan vaksin. Okay, let's jump straight into the reframing strategies. The first is selective approach. The Indonesian version is straightforward because it is simple and short, and while the English contains fancier words, multi-pronged, to draw public attention. Next, the Indonesian version put government as main reference because it is mentioned a lot. Meanwhile, the English version used Siti Nadia Tarmizi, a spokesperson from the health minister, as the main reference. And then more informal and impolite in Indonesian, indicated by the word dia, which actually can be changed with the word beliau. And the English version, on the other hand, is more formal because the writers always use the name instead of pronouns. Then we move on to contain much more information. The Indonesian versions mention the company's name, Bio Farma and Sinovac, while the English version only stated a national and foreign company. Then the second, framing by labeling, it is clear that both version refers to pemerintah or government and juru bicara vaksin COVID-19 Kementerian Kesehatan. The term is directly translated into English, so there's no any differences. Anyway, then the Indonesian flag, merah putih, is written to call vaccine produced by Indonesia, and the term is not translated because the writers want to showcase Indonesia's identity to the world. And then the third one, we talk about the temporal and spatial framing. The Indonesian focuses on the doer or the actors, which is juru bicara COVID-19, Kementerian Kesehatan, Siti Nadia Tarmizi. In contrast, the English version focuses on the action, which is the vaccination program. Some Something that is talked at the beginning of the sentence usually becomes the main focus. In the next, the Indonesian version focuses on the numbers of people being vaccinated. Sekitar 1,45 juta tenaga kesehatan ditargetkan menerima vaksinasi, and the English version focuses on the goal, which is to create herd community. The last one is about repositioning of participants. The word ujarnya at the end of quotation can be translated into she said, but instead the writers use she remarked to accentuate the importance of what is being taught. And then um, we are talking about News 8 by the title Second Phase of COVID-19 Vaccination to be completed in June, and Menkes targetkan vaksinasi COVID-19 tahap kedua tuntas pada bulan Juni. Let's jump straight into the reframing strategies. From the title we see above, there is an abbreviation in Indonesian version. In fact, health minister has no abbreviation form in English version, so the English has no abbreviation. In Indonesian version, it exposes the government flaw, that is, their inability to provide enough vaccines. Meanwhile, the English version tries to hide it by mentioning the vaccines are limited without telling the reason behind it. And we got the addition of exaggerated word uh, in the word fatality rate in Indonesian version, which can be compared to the softer word in English version, which is high risk. The reason behind it is to warn Indonesian people about why COVID-19 is dangerous, so that elderly people are the ones to be prioritized. The second, we discuss about framing by labeling. Ibu Khofifah Indar Parawansa and Menkes as government representations. It is certainly more friendly and informal compared to the strict English versions. Governor of East Java, Khofifah Indar Parawansa, and Minister of Health. And then we move on to the third one, that is about temporal and spatial framing. Indonesian version focuses on the object of the vaccine, which is sebanyak 21 juta penerima adalah lansia, 16 juta lainnya adalah pelayan publik. Dalam pekan ini, baru 150 ribuan yang divaksin. Compared to the English version, it focuses on the number of vaccine receivers as a whole, which is can be proven in sentence 38 million people targeted to receive the vaccines, or as many as 76 injections. And the rest, the second temporal and spatial framing is pretty much the same with the previous reframing elements. Like I said, it is more, the Indonesian version is more friendly, and the English version is more formal. The last one, repositioning of participants. There are no significant differences actually compared to the previous news. The word remarked is used instead of said as the English translations of ujarnya or katanya at the end of quotation, direct quotation. The only difference is the use of word explained to replace the word said at some points to emphasize on the fact that the news is very important, so that it requires to have explanations. The next news is going to be explained by my friend.
Hello, my name Muhammad Yusril Isa. Uh, I'm from Faculty of Social and Politics. I will presentation in this uh, news name. The title of news is Presiden Jokowi tinjau vaksinasi COVID-19 untuk wartawan di GBK. In Indonesian version is President observes journal in English version is President observes journalists receive COVID-19 vaccination at GBK. Type news is hard news, reframing strategies. Uh, First is selective appropriation. In Indonesian news is uh, omission of category sex of as omitted pronouns, and then omission to elaborate information, uh, and uh, additional information. In English news version is uh, addition of categories such as pronoun is, and then not additional to elaborate information, uh, and then omission information, omitted some information. Framing strategies. Second is framing by labeling. In Indonesia news is in the Indonesia news, the writer does not use such labeling to refer to the president, health minister, communication and informatics minister, and chief of the press council. The writer mention them one by one. And in English news, is the writer used the label the president and his entourage to refer to the president, health minister, communication and informatic minister, and chief of the press council. Uh, for reframing strategies, uh, third is temporal and spatial framing. In Indonesian news version is the writer may not intend to emphasize the information. Thus, one sentence is adequate to deliver the information. And in English news is the information above is splattered into two sentences. It is assumes that the writer is intended to split the focus to its event. Thank you for my presentation. Next.
So we are coming to the final news, which is news 10. The title of the English is Jokowi observes COVID-19 immunization for traders at Tanah Abang, while the Indonesian version is Jokowi tinjau vaksinasi pedagang di Pasar Tanah Abang Blok A. So what we have found here is the additions to elaborate information in the Indonesian news, which leads to more detailed information, while the English news, there is an omissions to suppress information that results in general information. So what we have found here is from the channel itself, in the Indonesian version, there's an additional information regarding the Tanah Abang market itself, which is Block A, while the English version omits that information, which is Block A. So it is only written as Tanah Abang, and we have found that in the Indonesian news, there is some kind of urgency in the president's event, because there is an additional word such as Presiden segera menuju lokasi, while in the English news there is no such emphasizement. So next, to the framing by labeling, both the Indonesian and English news use the actor as president in the Indonesian, while the English news is president. And moving on to the temporal and spatial framing, in the Indonesian news, the writer is focused on the action of the president, while the English news, there's also the writer, there's also a focus on the action of the president. It also mentioned past event and date that relates to the progress of the current vaccination program, which is there is no problem regarding the vaccination program that has been conducted in Indonesia since January. And in the last part, we have not found any repositioning of participants. Okay, so we can move to the conclusion of our presentation. So from our analysis, it can be concluded that the Indonesian news are dominantly focused on who delivers the information, whereas the English news are dominantly focused on on what information is delivered. It is found from the analysis of selection, appropriation, labeling, temporal and and spatial and repositioning of participants. These elements of reframing strategies are arranged to highlighting the focus of information by each versions of news, such as Indonesian version that focused on who stated the information, and the English version that tend to focus on the events or the phenomena itself. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. Should you have any question, feel free to ask our group members. Thank you very much and have a good day.